All right. Welcome to the Daily Dope. I'm your host, Brand Strong. Um, and right now I'm trying to get my shit back together here. For starters, if you've seen any of my other videos, my last video was the one that's where I kind of explained getting robbed and my recovery efforts and such. Part of the recovery effort, I guess, is to get things back to normal. I've been working really hard on the farm. I've been still going on my little nature walks and just doing just about everything. Talk to just about everybody I know by now. And trying to avoid the thoughts, the ugly thoughts that are coming in all the time about this. Thoughts about people, thoughts about my friends, and well, whatever. What it comes down to is I'm sitting here, and I'm like, man, days are going by, and these stories are sitting here, and now they're getting to be old news or whatever. But I think they're still important stories, and I have to get back to doing this because, to be honest, man, this is one of the things I do as like to get away from the work, which is the farming and now I'm doing all this new construction to make sure that this place is like fucking Fort Knox. But that being said, I'm trying to get back to my routine, and man, this is one of the things that I do also to blow off steam, because I talked to somebody on the phone earlier, and one of the first things I said, because this is the first time I talked to this person since this happened, and I'm like, I don't spend a whole lot of energy on the whodunit. I really just can't do that. There's a lot of things about that it's a lot of negativity, and it can only lead to bad things like vengeance or retribution. What am I supposed to do? Go rob them now? Or go inflict physical harm on these people? Whoever robbed me, they're going to get theirs. Believe it. I mean, I'm not going to do anything personally. I might not even know that it happens, but people like that, somebody that would rob me, somebody that just does what he does to help people. And of course, you're going to get yours, man. If you're watching this fucking video, which who knows, these days, wouldn't doubt it. But anyway, moving on, we have stories, and these stories are getting old, so I better grab onto them and put them down before they're gone. And the cool thing about my channel is I look back to the videos throughout the last year that I've made, and I'm thinking a lot of these videos aren't really time sensitive, because this shit just keeps happening over and over and over again. Like you'll see with another video I'm about to make about the damn drug driving bullshit that we are, in case you live under a rock, that's basically all the fuck, the talk of the town is on cannabis, is stone driving, impaired driving, and mainly how they're going to fucking write a ticket to you. Because they want to make sure that they can still enforce marijuana laws, and if you're going to get rid of these ones, well, we got to invent these ones. Impaired driving's always been illegal. If you're driving all fucked up and the cop pulls you over and the only thing in your system is marijuana, guess what? You're going to get a fucking ticket for that. It's nothing new, guys, but now if the cops pull you over and just smell weed, time for a breathalyzer, and give you some weed breathalyzer, and it fucking says that you got 10 nanograms, and apparently that's over some kind of made-up legal limit in some idiot's fucking mind. It's just, there's no science whatsoever behind it. So we'll get into that later. That's a whole nother clip. Right now we're talking about this secret meeting. And I want to move this along because I'm sick of looking at this ugly motherfucker on my screen. What we have here is Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers. This guy's got an interesting history. He used to be a federal prosecutor, and now he's a mayor. Who the fuck hires a former federal prosecutor as a mayor? Maybe even a judge. I'm not sure. We'll find out as the story goes. But this dude right here, just look at him. Do you think this guy's ever used cannabis? How about on a medical capacity. You think he's ever used medical marijuana? You know how I can tell? Because he looks like he's got one fucking foot in the grave. All right? This guy looks like he's got a myriad of health problems. It looks like his immune system is not working too well. His skin looks like shit. He's got these spots, and he just overall looks like a really bad, unhealthy person. He's got baggy neck. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's just really old, but I don't think he's in that good of health. Just saying. So, this was reported by local news as a secret meeting, and everybody be alarmed because they're talking about maybe a potential crackdown. And that would be alarming for sure, because these guys are the same goons that would like to have a crackdown. Trump's minions, I keep calling them. Because I think without these guys, I don't think Trump really is that big of a threat. But when you got these guys, these old prohibitionists keep floating around, they keep in power, and they're corrupt. They're the corruptest, most corrupt. There's no one more corrupt than these fucking Republicans. Let's face it. Except for maybe Hillary. Other than that, the Republicans, every fucking one of them, are in the tank for every ugly, shady, sinister fucking corporate lobby group or, otherwise, of course, anti-marijuana. Have you ever seen that chart about why is marijuana illegal for real? It's got all the corporations and everything that they, every interest that they have can be tied to an industry that cannabis or hemp will put right out of business. So yeah, of course, you're going to have every lobby in the world fighting cannabis. So dig in, guys. This is just the fucking beginning chapter of this fight. The intro chapter was prohibition. It's 80 years of prohibition. And now we have chapter 1, like education. This is like the information age. Everybody knows the facts about cannabis. I'm not going to say marijuana. That's only used for their bullshit. Only to define the raw plant that is illegal because of their laws. When it comes to us, we know that anything that has them pretty little leaves is called cannabis. And none of it should be fucking illegal. None of it should be taxed or regulated. But hey, baby steps. We'll do what we got to do. And this is just the very beginning, guys. I don't plan on seeing in my lifetime before I die, and I'm 45 years old. I don't think before I die that we're gonna have this dream world of no regulations. Just hey, this shit's just like tomatoes. It'll never be like that. Not in this fucking country. So the Federal Department of Justice and drug policy officials met privately Wednesday with Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers, local police, and other community leaders as part of an apparent statewide closed-door focusing on Colorado's burgeoning legal marijuana industry. The visits aim to find out what law enforcement and other regulatory agencies view towards marijuana regulation in Colorado. On Monday, Department of Justice and the White House Office of Drug Control and Policy met with Governor John Hickenlooper's staff, state marijuana regulators, and the Rocky Mountain High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, Suthers said. And you remember the Rocky Mountain High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, that's the federal funding for the area, and people are like in charge of that to make sure that everything happens according to some plan that they write. And they're also the ones that wrote that writes reports, and they're the ones that wrote that bullshit report talking about how drug driving deaths related to cannabis increase. Oh, come on, man. There has never been a death caused by just cannabis alone on the road. Please tell me about it if you think that I'm wrong, or if you know of one. Because there's always another factor that someone overlooks. So a day later, they met in Suthers' office for an hour while also speaking with Colorado Springs police commanders and drug enforcement agencies' resident agent. He added, Suthers' input centered around the huge black market that still exists across Colorado, and much of it concerned sensitive case investigations that cannot be discussed publicly, he said. My argument there is if you want to be completely transparent, you put out the minutes and redact the shit that you say is supposed, ongoing investigation, et cetera, sensitive case info. You take that shit, you redact it, and then the rest of it, you put it on the table and say, look, see, this is what we talked about. No harm, no foul. But since you didn't do that and you haven't yet done that, this secret part of this secret meeting shit has everyone scared fucking shitless. And rightfully so. You guys are the shadiest bunch of goons I've ever seen in Washington when it comes to cannabis. It's like, even though states seem to be able to regulate their own shit, and I'm sure the local police in Colorado, I've heard that they just have like nonstop marijuana busts every day over there. So it ain't like they're not, doing what they said, like enforcing the regulations and making sure that bad players are getting punished, quite frankly. They don't need you sniffing around. Anyway, he added that federal officials were interested in the nature and extent of black market activity here. Later, the federal officials spoke to local medical and education officials to learn about the impacts of cannabis on our city, a city spokeswoman said. Now, I'm going to guess that everywhere they went was a bunch of right-wing, churchy-ass groups, and they were, set up just to tell them all the negative things that they could think of, which is all bullshit, because there is no negative things. There's no negative health impacts. There's no impacts of cannabis on our city. They're going to say that there's a bunch of new homeless people that came to town because of it, and they're going to say this, and they're going to say that, and I've heard all the stories. But we know the real shit. Like when you close a dispensary, property crime goes up in the area. Because the dispensary was kind of like a show of security around the area. They had security guards, they have cameras. I wish I had security guards. Next time I will have security guards. I do have cameras. The cameras didn't seem... everybody knows that everybody's got fucking cameras. If you go to rob somebody and you don't wear something to cover your face, I guess you're pretty stupid. But it doesn't hurt to have cameras, and it is pretty intimidating when you walk up to something and it's like, hey, cameras everywhere. So a full accounting of the visit was not released Wednesday, and requests for comment by the Gazette to both federal agencies were not returned. Everyone in Colorado Springs known to have met with the federal officials has either expressed strong concern about legalized marijuana or opposition. They included Dr. Kenneth Finn, who has given presentations to local elected officials on medical dangers he sees in marijuana use. And I guarantee you that's the guy they went to go see about, the health impacts or whatever that they were talking about earlier. Why wouldn't it be? Why would they go talk to somebody that might say something good about it, or just go to the regular old emergency room and be like, hey, let's get everybody together for a little round table real quick so we can talk about this marijuana shit. All right, Finn confirmed to the Gazette that he met with federal officials but declined to say what they discussed, saying, I think it was somewhat confidential. This is a doctor on the side. This guy has nothing to do with pending cases. So no, it wasn't fucking confidential. It was you're the only one that wants it to be confidential unless they told you, hey, whoa, you better not tell anybody what we talked about. Because it's called stovepiping. Have you ever heard of that? It's where you want a certain narrative to be true. So in order to make that narrative true, you have to stovepipe in data to back that up, to support it, instead of like going out and finding data, and because then you're running the risk of getting data that doesn't support your shit. So you go directly to somebody like a Dr. fucking Finn, and you're like, yo, tell us all about how marijuana is just causing all kinds of medical problems in your community. And you get him to make official statements and blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know it, you have your data. And I don't know what kind of data he's got, but it sounds like they're putting together a nice new batch of reefer madness for you. That's what's going on here. So come on, give me a break. The secretive nature of the meetings led to speculation and concern by local marijuana advocate about greater federal involvement in local drug cases. And he voiced frustration that the meetings likely painted a one-sided picture of the state's pot industry. Pot, man. Was this written by fucking the Cannabis? Oh, this is written by the Gazette. Okay, this is the actual article written after the first one that kind of made it sound really like, whoa, secret meeting, what the fuck? So this is the second article by the Gazette. But still, man, come on, pot. At the time when marijuana remains illegal under federal law. It's given them the in to come after the industry. That's the fear, said Jason Wharf, executive director of Southern Colorado Cannabis Council. Are you kidding? It's just, whatever I just said is exactly what it was. They're stovepiping together a fucking narrative that's going to be like, oh, see, you guys need the feds back in. The problem with this medical marijuana being legal in more than 25 states, problem with recreational marijuana being legalized, this and that, in 8 states plus DC and all this other shit. The thing about it all is that these guys, they think they're losing business. They think that for some reason, they're going to get cut out of the situation where they get to kick doors in, they get to seize assets, they get to do this, they get to do that. And what? What's the big deal, man? Fold it up, go find something better to do. I mean, it's marijuana, dude, and the state has it under control, but no, they don't. I'm going to tell you guys, man, right now, marijuana, cannabis, hemp might not be as bad as the other two, but it's still under attack. All three are being demonized and attacked more than ever before right now. And it's going to keep getting ramped up. And this is starting to feel like, the 80th anniversary of Reefer Madness and prohibition of marijuana is that they're not going to be like reevaluating, we've wasted trillions of dollars and ruined millions of lives. They ain't going to say any of that. They're going to fucking double down on this shit, and they're going to just go about the business until public sentiment is completely against what they're doing. All right, the topic has put them at odds with Southers, who has repeatedly said that recreational marijuana sales have no place in a city whose economy relies heavily on military spending, and that brands itself as Olympic City, USA. Well, isn't that special? Look, dude, you can still do all that and have marijuana sales, cannabis sales, whatever. There's really no problem there. And what you're talking about, military spending, is you're talking about you have defense contractors that have their factories in your fucking towns. And quite frankly, the Department of Justice doesn't like the idea of anybody smoking marijuana thinking about war machines being built in their backyard. Because they know that one of the things marijuana is it makes you think, and it makes you have a clear conscience, and it makes you wrap your head around shit and think about stuff a little bit more. And it also makes you think that peace is better than war. So we got an update on this, kinda. So they come out with an excuse, of course. So, like I said, they come in there spooky, scare everybody. You look at who they visited and what they said and what they did, and you're like, that's shady as fuck. What are they? And they heard that. They heard you. They heard you loud and clear, everybody. Internet, Twitter, people that write for High Times, Cannabis, everybody else, Leafly. The thing is they look at message boards. They live in message boards. They are the trolls that you always argue with in the message boards. They literally are, man. I know. How do I know? I've seen the same fucking troll for like 8 years on message boards now. He even uses the same handles and shit, whether he's talking about somebody in Cleveland, Ohio, or talking, on a post in Colorado. So anyway, that being said, hi guys. I know you're watching my fucking show too, but whatever, man. And this is a battle everywhere, and we're all like on the front lines. They don't really have nothing to worry about because all they're doing is just trying to push us down as hard as they can. And I can do another whole clip if I wanted to about how they're just clearing the way for their vision of what cannabis should be. In their eyes, they're going to give this to the big pharma. And they're going to dissect this shit and make pills out of it, and they have all these big dreams and hopes. And if I think about that dystopian future, I still can't see 50 years down the road where there's a time when you can't just pick a fucking bud and dry it out and smoke it. That's always going to be a thing, guys. Big Pharma cannot bastardize this fucking plant. So, your dream of doing that, it's just a pipe dream. You just want us to go away because we were right all along and you were wrong. That's it. So here's their bullshit reason why they were here. Colorado officials, and this is another Alicia Wallace story. This is actually written by cannabis staff. So Colorado officials who oversee the state's marijuana agencies are sharing details about fact-finding visit earlier this week by federal law enforcement and drug policy administrators. Yeah, right. Fact-finding. 5 representatives from the federal government met Tuesday morning in Denver with nearly 24 state officials for a 2.5-hour meeting about Colorado's legal marijuana regimen, says Mark Bolton, marijuana advisor to Governor John Hickenlooper, who, by the way, as much as he keeps saying that he's came around on legalization and he's for it now, I think he's full of shit, dude. I think your fucking governor is just as against cannabis as any other Republican, and he's a Democrat. Big surprise, another Democrat that's not your friend with cannabis. So the meeting preceded a similarly focused closed-door gathering on Wednesday between federal agents and government officials in Colorado Springs, according to KKTV 11 and Colorado Springs Gazette. I read the KKTV 11 story first. That's the one that was the scare tactic. And it worked, man. Everybody was like, what? And remember, there's like 75 or more % of the country are vehemently opposed of Trump's minions, like doing a 180 on states that legalize marijuana and going after them and enforcing any kind of bullshit. So, anyway, Bolton told the Cannabis that Tuesday's meeting resulted from Hickenlooper's request to U.S. Attorney Jeff Sessions in April to visit Colorado to get a first-hand look at the state's first-of-a-kind attempt to regulate and tax adult-use marijuana sales. Don't forget Washington did this shit simultaneously. Why don't they ever get, like, focused on? That's kind of weird, ain't it? Oh, yeah, it's because the Alcohol Control Board got to take the marijuana over, and everybody got their piece of the pie chart, and everybody's happy, I think. Maybe. Anyway. Same with Oregon. You don't really hear much from them. All right, our purpose was to convey to them that the strength of our regulatory system and our enforcement system and our policies and practices, said Bolton, who was among the meeting's attendees on Tuesday. Bullshit, I call. Those discussions span the comprehensive nature of the state system, efforts to cull gray and black market activity, and the establishment of youth prevention and adult education campaigns. Let me just tell you what an adult education and youth prevention campaigns are. What those are is that they fucking penalize you and make you go to stupid little classes where they teach you how to make decisions. And then really what they teach you how to do is how to pay their fucking for their classes, or you get more thrown in jail. So whatever, man. Are you going to try to make crimes out of marijuana again? That's all I'm asking. Because basically that's just possession. Oh, we caught you with weed. Public education campaigns. He said the federal officials were especially interested in the state's responses to unexpected issues as well as the public's education campaigns. He added, the federal officials did not broach the topic of any immediate or future federal enforcement activities against the industry, he said, and that's a fucking lie. Now back to this public education campaign thing. Remember DARE? That's what DARE was. So they're figuring, how are we going to do DARE again? Well, gee, my highlights got fucked over again. Let's see if a refresh will help. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Okay, well, anyway, the federal agents present represented the Deputy Attorney General, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, the Domestic Policy Council, and State Department. Colorado officials included State Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman, who had also invited Sessions to visit Colorado earlier this year, and representatives from agencies such as the Department of Revenue, Department of Public Health and Environment, Department of Public Safety, and Colorado Department of Transportation and Department of Regulatory Affairs, Bolton said. In each one of those departments, I guarantee you'll find somebody that has something bad to say about cannabis, even though the numbers might not back them up. I think that the federal officials viewed this as an educational opportunity. We heard you say that, and I don't like your educational opportunity, and they're not trying to learn anything. They're just trying to get their stovepiped information together so they can put together a case. Kaufman, in a joint statement with Hickenlooper's office, said they were pleased with the federal government accepted their invitation to visit Colorado. They were coming anyway, man. The meeting focused on sharing Colorado's experience in creating and executing a robust and effective regulatory enforcement system and continuing efforts to protect public health and public safety. Our conversation with the federal delegation was productive, and we look forward to continued collaboration. What does that mean? Justice Department officials declined to comment. They don't have nothing to say, man. They don't really care. They don't give a fuck that you want them to tell them what they were there for. Yeah, there you go with the sensitive case investigations. That's why we couldn't go public with it. So without getting into that, I will tell you that probably most of the discussion centered around the huge black market that exists for marijuana in Colorado. That's not what the other guy said. The other guy said it was about the education and the public education, the Bolton guy. So Southers is saying that it was about fucking the black market and shit. Huh, interesting. All right, some industry members, however, balked at the closed-door nature of the meetings and the participation of individuals known to oppose legalization, including Southers. And by the way, all they had to do is invite some people from our side or whatever. Like I said, just have a regular old group of fucking people from the ER or, you know, have you seen a spike in shit happen in the emergency room because marijuana's legal now? Marijuana's been smoked by the same amount of people since it was illegal or legal, you guys. Wake up the fuck up. You're not going to get increased numbers in the hospitals or in the morgue. that zero don't go up. The zero stays at zero. So you're not going to get a bunch of increases anywhere, all right? The same amount of people smoked weed than they do now than they did then. That's a fact. You could legalize it so that it's like, you know, they just have like joint dispensers at the end of every block, free weed. And the same amount of people will still fucking hate it. The same amount of people will still talk shit about it. And the same amount of fucking people will love it and smoke it. So don't act like all of a sudden there's this wave of new smokers. Or like instead of just a mere 20% or less of the population smoking cannabis, you have like 20% that don't. It didn't happen, did it, guy? Your own numbers prove that shit didn't happen. In our earliest conversations following Sessions' appointment, we expressed a desire for open, fact-based dialogue, Christy Kelly, MIG Executive Director, told the Cannabis via email. These conversations in Colorado Springs and Denver represent initial steps in that process. We hope this spurs productive discussion around cannabis issues. Marijuana Industry Group has worked in responsible partnership with the state and local officials over the years on numbers of issues, from improvements in our regulatory system to tracking impaired drivers, youth prevention, and safe consumption. When appropriate, we hope industry, the patient community, and the other stakeholders are invited to participate in discussions as well. It was not immediately clear how or whether the discussions would factor into a report due to Sessions next week from the Department of Justice task force convened to review policies in the areas of violent crime, immigration, and drug trafficking. All right, so remember, that's due next Thursday. So I'm going to do an update after all that and let you know how it went, because they're supposed to basically tell Sessions, like, well, here's what we found out about the enforcement of marijuana where it's legal, you know, and we're going to go from there. We've heard that. A spokesman for the governor's office in Washington State, which followed Colorado in implementing recreational cannabis programs, said no similar meetings have taken place with federal officials there. Press Secretary for Oregon Governor Kate Brown did not indicate whether federal agents visited to discuss marijuana policies, but referenced a May meeting between the state officials and U.S. Attorney Billy Williams regarding black market concerns. So, yeah, that I don't know if any of that made anybody feel any better about what they talked about. But I'll tell you, like, again, I will just say one more time that if they really was just doing what they said they were doing, they would have invited more people in instead of stovepipers that are just going to, like, cook up some data for them to support their, you know, reefer madness diatribe that they're about to fucking slap down right before they, who knows, come in and raid an actual legal, legit cannabis outfit. And when that happens, I mean, the thing about it is the feds have always gone after bigger operations, you know, 100-plus plants. You got operations in, you know, Colorado that are like San Pueblo, 10,000 or more plants. The DEA would love to go shut that down. They would fucking love it. All right, that's all I got on that. But like I said, I'll keep you up to date on that one because that's pretty shady.